welcome back to Martin's Models, and as we promised in the last video on the Type 21, we'd now be having a look at the hyoteki Japanese midget submarine, which I've had a few inquiries about how it was made and what scale it was and all the rest of it, so I thought it'd be quite a good idea to give you a close-up view of the boat itself. Now, just a little bit of background to the submarine itself. This is a hyoteki, or Type A Japanese midget submarine, which is one of 5 boats that famously went into Pearl Harbor before the actual main assault to try and torpedo some of the American warships. Unfortunately, I think only one boat actually got in there and was reputed to actually have fired its torpedoes. And this particular boat, which is HA-19, never actually made it into the harbour. However, there is quite an interesting story that goes with it. If you want to know a more in-depth description, for one of a better thing, of the whole operation, I can recommend getting to look at Mark Felton Productions on YouTube, and he does a really nice sort of video story of the whole operation, in which he actually uses some of the footage of my submarine underwater in the actual footage itself. So if you want to know more about that, check out Mark Felton Productions on YouTube. However, this particular boat didn't actually make it into the harbour. In fact, having been kind of delivered to the outside of the harbour, as they all were, on a very large Japanese submarine called an I-400, they then climbed into the submarine itself, and then the whole idea was to get into the harbour over the submarine nets. Unfortunately, this one had a damaged gyroscope on it, so he in fact actually got stuck on the reef, and I think it was USS Ward actually fired a few shots at it and blew a hole in the side of it. Now, the main thing that actually happened here was, after that, the guy and the submarine actually were washed up on the beach. The 2 men inside, one of them died, he drowned, and the other chap actually became the first prisoner of war in America, which is quite a story. And the boat itself actually ended up being retrieved, and it was actually taken round, I think it was the United States, on a bit of a show. And in fact, the actual boat itself now is in a museum in Texas, so if you want to check that out. Anyway, enough on that. Anyway, this was the first submarine that I actually built, and I wanted something I could actually build from scratch, which I did, and I didn't want to make a mould. So what I did was, very similar to what I've done before when I used to make surfboards, is I made a core out of wood this time, planked it, and then I glassed over the core until I got the tube. I then gave it a hot coat, which is what you do in surfboarding, and then rubbed it all down so it was completely smooth, beautiful finish, and then basically cut it in half, and then took out the core inside, and ended up with the shape of the submarine you've got now. Now that's a better way of making a submarine if you've only got one boat you want to make, because if you make a mould, you're in fact making 3 boats. You're making the actual plug itself, you're making the mould on the outside, and then you're making the boat that you want. And I didn't really want to do that. I just wanted a one-off boat that I could make. Now this is a 1/16 scale. It's like, I think it's about 1.4 meters long. And the interesting fact about this boat is it has a contra-rotating propeller, so it doesn't actually turn over. So it's a bit like a torpedo, really, because they were really fast underwater. They had these 2 massive, great big torpedoes in the front, which were meant to deliver a fair old punch. However, this particular piece on the front here was a sort of a net cutter arrangement, and that didn't work very well. In fact, it got bent, I think it did, and it stopped the torpedoes coming out. However, 2 men inside of this, and we'll have a look inside and show you what the whole gubbins is. but the problem is with this submarine, it's a lovely boat and does look kind of, does have a does create quite a bit of a stir when it's at the show. However, actually on the water, it doesn't have a very good turning circle because the rudders on the back are particularly small, and that's no good. And in real life, they were terrible as well. So it doesn't turn particularly well. And what I had to do is I had to put a bow thruster on the front here, so that when it's actually running fairly straight and it gets to the end of its line, I can then turn it around underwater and kind of come back. Great if you've got a pond, you can walk around the outside. It looks absolutely fantastic, and it does actually work really well. But for on the water further out, it's not so good. It's a bit like the original, as I say. It was a bit of a nightmare. However, it is a scratch built model. I even built the conning tower here. Actually built a mould out of foam and then glassed over top of it, and then rubbed it down until we got a beautiful finish here now, a bit of weathering and all the rest of it. So I'll show you what the rear end of it looks like, and then we'll have a look inside. Right, there we have. It's a little close-up of the contra-rotating propellers. These are actually standard propellers, which I've kind of drilled out and put a shaft inside another shaft with a seal on the end. So didn't have to have them specially made, but you can see here the very small rudders and the actual planes here, the dive planes, they're also very small as well. But other than that, very sleek looking design. As you can see, a little hatchway there, a working hatchway there, that's that, and another little pop-up periscope. As you can see, to give you a bit of an overall view of it. And then at the front, there's the view from the front that you might well be familiar with, and the video seen of the boat underwater. Right, we've taken the top off so you can have a look inside, see what goes on. We've got the WTC here, which contains an Engel dive unit, which we've explained beforehand, which is basically a little piston unit inside. The battery inside this one is also inside the tube, because at that time I didn't have enough room for a wet battery at that time, but I was still experimenting with all sorts of various other things as well. So all the general electronics are in this, I think it's a 90mm tube inside here. And we've also got a very slow brushless motor. I think it's 100 kVA. Now, to get a hold of one of these is particularly difficult. I mean, this is a Roxy or a Robbie one, don't make them anymore, but you need something that's slow that will drive these two contra-rotating propellers. And what happens is it's a single shaft comes out through this coupling here in there and into this gearbox here, which will show you a little uptime. I had to build this little gearbox. It's built out of bevel gears, and what happens is a single shaft comes into here. It goes right the way through, basically to the one of the propellers at the back. But it's also connected to the first bevel gear here, which then actually goes around four bevel gears, which converts the direction opposite, so it completely changes the direction. So the bevel gear here at the end here is then connected to the outer shaft, which then runs over the inner shaft, and that is in fact connected to the other propeller, and that's how it kind of works. There are some details in the internet, so you can check it out, but that basically is made out of nylon gears and turns very slowly, and I built that inside an aluminium box basically, and it's actually all sealed up. It doesn't need to be, it could run in water if you want to, but and that's how it works. And you can actually take this out, but it needs to run very slowly, because if it runs too fast, the gears could get meshed, and that wouldn't be great. But it does work exceptionally well, and if you check out one of my videos, you'll see the actual craft underwater, which looks actually fantastic and spectacular underwater. So we'll show you the rest of the tube. And in fact, and we'll also show you the bow thruster at the front, which I had to put in. Right, okay, here, and here you can see the bow thruster, which I had to put in. That's just actually sealed in another tube, because I like to seal everything. And then you can see the battery there, the internal battery, which is actually, I have to actually, there are some connecting wires here, which you then can, just get it back into focus. Here we go. Which you can then actually charge without taking the battery out, which is a really good idea. But then we go along here. You've got the angle unit there. It's not a very big angle unit. It's very quite small, 200 or something like that, cubic centimeters, 250 cubic centimeters, something like that. I don't know. And a bit more, very complicated wiring. Does have a depth pressure gauge on it as well. I don't think it really needs it, but there it is. There's a very large brushless motor, and then we come along to the gearbox, and as you can see, there are the bevel gears in there, which actually drive the outer shaft. Now also you can see the connecting push rod wires in there for the rudders, which were actually a nightmare because of the tiny space I had to, and I've actually used aircraft snakes on this, which work very well. And as you can see, they travel through to the very small space inside there in order to make it work. Right, so there you have it. That's the overview of the hyoteki Japanese Midget submarine that I built quite a few years ago. So I hope you really enjoyed looking at that. And as I say, if you want to see it underwater, check out one of my videos. And also, if you want to know more about the submarine, Mark Felton Productions is your man. So the next submarine we'll be looking at probably is the famous Type 7, which you might well know, a German Type 7 submarine. Mine is now U-87, so we'll have a look at that, which is a fully rusted version of it, which you can have a look at, and that'll be in the next video. So check you out. Hope you enjoyed it. See you later.